another Wednesday, another YieldMax distribution announcement. So today, August 13, 2025, YieldMax announced their distributions for all of their weekly payers as well as the Group B ETFs. And like I do every Wednesday, I'm just going to go over these, kind of see which one paid the more, paid the less, and then look a bit at the underlyings, maybe look at why some of them paid more, like for example, PLTY, and then MARO and MRNY paid less than the last Group B distribution. And we're also going to talk a bit about YMAX and about ULTY, obviously, because I think ULTY is the favorite ETF of most of the people that are following me. And it's also one of my favorite ETFs as well. We're going to look at ULTY's holdings, and we're going to talk about ULTY a little bit like we usually do and see how much I'll be getting this week from my YieldMax holdings. I copied the press release for this week's Group B distributions into my own spreadsheet, so then I can order them by distribution rate, so we can see which ones did the best and which ones paid a bit less than usual. As we can see, Palantir, PLTY, crazy distribution this week, 125% for Palantir. Congrats to anyone holding this one, and I know that last time it didn't pay as much and some people were hating on it. Let me know in the comments if you guys hold any of this one, but congrats to anyone holding PLTY. Crazy distribution. Then ULTY, our little baby, 10 cents again. I think 5 or 6 weeks in a row paying 10 cents and more. Distribution rate of 85%. So I don't know what YieldMax is doing, but I don't know if they're aiming for this, but it seems like they've been able to stabilize at around 85% yield for the past 2-3 weeks. So hopefully they keep on doing this, and the NAV has been pretty good as well. ULTY, another killer week for ULTY, what can we say? Congrats to anyone holding ULTY, congrats to anyone who went all in on ULTY. I think it's been paying off in the last few weeks, and as long as ULTY is doing well and everyone's happy with their ULTY holdings, I am also happy. Then MARO, we got 67%, which is not as high as last Group B distributions. LFGY 63% with 44.84 cents. LFGY is pretty much slept on too. If you see at my other distribution videos from YieldMax, LFGY is actually pretty stable and it's always paying around 45 cents and with a distribution rate of around 63%. So LFGY is doing very, very good. So congrats to everyone holding this one. MRNY 62%, NVDY 61%. So this one I'm kind of surprised. I feel like NVIDIA has been moving a lot. So hopefully the next Group B distribution will be higher. And also we have NVIDIA's earnings that are coming up. Hopefully the next Group B distribution will be big on NVDY. Then YMAX 53%. So this one is actually pretty good for this week. Then for the gold miners, we have 50%. Meta, we have 46%. YMAX 43% with an 11-cent payout. I'm a little bit disappointed with YMAX, but if we look at Group B distributions, for YMAX, Group B distributions are always the lowest ones. Last Group B distributions 4 weeks ago, YMAX paid around 10 cents. So now we're up 1 cent on last week. If we look at the patterns and how YMAX pays, Group B is always the lowest one. And then Group C is usually one of the highest ones. So hopefully next week we'll see a big juicy payout from YMAX. I really hope so, because this Friday I'm actually planning on buying a bunch of shares of YMAX. So hopefully that will be a good decision and I'm not going to get disappointed again with YMAX, but whatever. YMAX is kind of just reflecting all of their underlyings, and when the market conditions aren't allowing YieldMax to pay big distributions on their underlyings, that's what you get from YMAX. Then Chippy, we got 38%. So Chippy too is very stable, and week after week it's paying in the 30% range. Then we have DIPS, which is the short for NVIDIA, 36%. NVIDIA is a very bullish stock, so maybe some people are holding DIPS. I don't think this one has been the best holding in the last few weeks, just from the nature of NVIDIA really getting a lot of value and appreciation in their stock price. RDTY, which paid 31 cents, so 35%, so still pretty good. GPTY 32%, SDTY 23%, QDTY 21%, and then JPMO 21%. So I mean, JP Morgan is not a super volatile stock, so I don't think we'll ever see a 100% distribution from this one, but still 21% is still good for people who still want a bit of income on top of investing into JP Morgan, for example. Now just to compare with the last Group B distribution, so that was on July 18, as we can see, MARO paid 125, MRNY 101, and then ULTY was still at 85%, NVIDIA paid 75, LFGY 62%, so pretty stable this one, and Palantir paid only 48%. So really a big fluctuation from 48% to 125%. The traders behind all of those YieldMax ETFs, they're going to pay you as much as they can, and it really depends on the market conditions. And this time we had really volatile conditions for Palantir and some good stuff happening. So that is why they've been able to pay you guys 125%. But yeah, as you can see, it went from 48% to 125%. And like I was saying, last time YieldMax paid 10.4 cents and now we're at 11 cents. And then if we look at Group C, which was the next week, YMAX paid 18 cents, so we went from 10 to 18 cents. If we follow that pattern, Group B is usually the crappiest YMAX distribution, and then Group C is usually a pretty juicy, pretty big distribution from YMAX. So hopefully, crossing my fingers, next week we get a nice distribution from YMAX. Now, if we quickly look at the current holdings from ULTY just to see what they have been doing, if we compare it with last week, for example, last week their top 3 holdings were Rigetti Computing, New Skill Power Corp, and Upstart Holdings. This week their top holdings are Coin. At the moment they have a lot of cash. They have Coin, and then they still have Rigetti Computing. I'm a big fan of Rigetti Computing. I'm kind of itching to actually invest in this stock. I still have to do more research, and I was also thinking about making a video about this one because I think this one has a lot of potential and it would be interesting to cover it and kind of learn about it myself and share what I learned with you guys on YouTube. Anyways, so their 4th holding is AST Space Mobile, then they have NBIS, they have AppLovin Corp, Ionic, Oklo, Rocket Lab. Pretty cool to see they have Rocket Lab. They still have MSTR, SMR, Upstart Holdings, Mara, Hood, Reddit, Galaxy, Bitmine, Immersion Technologies, Unity Software. So interesting why they have Unity. Maybe there's something coming up or some news, or maybe Unity is just very volatile at the moment. Affirm Holdings, Tesla, Webull, Palantir, Supermicro Computer, Amat, and then the rest is all of their covered calls and their puts, so all of their caller strategies right now that they have open. As we can see when we look at ULTY's holdings week after week, it's always changing, and ULTY is doing a very good job obviously at maintaining that 85% yield while always having a rotation in their holding. There's so much eyes on ULTY and there's so much people going on ULTY. I'm sure that they're really doing their best to perform as well as they possibly can, and I think no one is disappointed right now. They have been paying 85% yield for the past 2-3 more weeks. The NAV has been pretty much stable, so if we look at the total returns of ULTY, it's pretty much a steep line to the upside, so ULTY has been doing crazy recently. Now to quickly look at the implied volatility of these top pairs, so Palantir, which paid 125%, as we can see the implied volatility really spiked in the month of July, so I think this is why we were able to extract a 125% payout. If we look at the blue line here as well, this is the stock price, and as we can see the stock price has been also climbing very fast. On top of selling their covered calls for a high premium, they're probably also buying calls that they're able to sell for a profit since the stock has been rising pretty fast, and with a spike of the implied volatility, here is why they've been able to pay that 125% yield compared to 4 weeks ago where they quote unquote only paid 50%, which doesn't seem like a lot when you compare it to 125%, but 50% regardless is still a high distribution rate. Kind of sucks here that we have a steep drop in the implied volatility, so maybe next month the payout won't be as high, but we'll have to see what the market offers. Maybe it's going to come back up. Then Meta didn't pay as much. As we can see, the implied volatility spiked here, but it wasn't as high as the implied volatility of Palantir, hence why they weren't able to pay as much, but they still paid a fair amount that was around 65%. Same thing for Mara here. The implied volatility did spike in July, but as you can see here, it is 16 compared to Meta, which was 34, compared to Palantir, which was in the low 40s. Yes, there was a spike in implied volatility, but the implied volatility value itself wasn't as high as Palantir. So if they were selling some out of the money calls at the same percentage with Mara and with Palantir, they would be making much more money with Palantir. So it's all about implied volatility and also the underlying. After July 22nd, it just has been going down a lot. This is not ideal for options trading. Obviously, those option ETFs from YieldMax are bullish strategies. So when the underlying is going down, it's not the ideal conditions for YieldMax to pay as high distributions as they can. Then for Moderna, we got a big spike of volatility here in July. Then it dropped and it didn't really stabilize. So I'm not too sure why YieldMax wasn't able to pay a higher distribution. Maybe because the underlying was rocky as well. It was going up, down, up, down. The IV is super low. So just hopefully we won't get a crappy distribution for the next Group B distribution of MRNY. Then for NVDY, the implied volatility was pretty crappy during the month of July, as we can see. And then at the end of July, in the beginning of August, it actually spiked. So if this keeps going up, and as we can see, the blue line here, the underlying is just going up in a straight line like an arrow. So to anyone holding NVIDIA as a growth investor, they've been making a lot of money just on the price appreciation. But here, as we can see, the IV is also going up. It seems like if we keep a trend like this, the next NVDY distribution should hopefully be near 100%, hopefully 100%. That was it for a quick overview of those top payers and those top dogs and why some of them paid more, some of them paid less. But nonetheless, Palantir 125%. I'm very impressed with that one. And ULTY, I mean, I am impressed, but it's becoming routine. Every week we're getting our 85% distribution with a stable NAV. And also, I don't know if you guys heard the news, but YMAX is coming with SLTY. So this is going to be a short ULTY. So it's going to be an inverse of ULTY. They're not going to be shorting ULTY, but they're going to be doing the same thing as ULTY. So ULTY, they're screening kind of those top high IV stocks, and they're bullish on their strategies. They're trading those options. They're using collars to generate income and pay you guys on a weekly basis. SLTY is going to be the same thing. So they're going to have a screener. I'm not too sure if they're going to do collars, but kind of inverted. But they're going to screen the market for some quote unquote crappier stocks that are high volatility. So some stocks that are going down, they're going to pull them into SLTY, and they're going to trade them the same way as they're trading ULTY. All of the holdings inside of SLTY are going to be bearish holdings. So it's not a direct inverse on ULTY. And then everything into ULTY is bullish. So I think that this is going to be very, very cool. And I am so excited to see how a combination of ULTY and SLTY or SLTY is going to be doing in a portfolio. I'm sure that some people are already going to go crazy and drop some big amount of money into SLTY. I'm just very curious to see what they're going to do. And just by the name of it, SLTY, I assume that the yield should be around the same as ULTY, and it's going to be weekly distribution. Very, very exciting news for that. And as soon as we get more info about SLTY, I'll obviously be making a video covering everything that I can find about this new ETF that is coming up. Just to quickly look at ULTY, the net assets now is 3.13 billion. So this one has been growing so fast. Like recently, it just passed 1 billion. Then I didn't even have time to blink my eyes. It's over 2. And now we're already over 3. And then I don't know what's going to happen. Are we going to see 5 billion in the next month? ULTY is doing good. ULTY is getting big. The bigger it gets, I suppose, the better it is for investors as well. I'm planning to buy a lot of YMAX this Friday. So next week, hopefully, I will be making quote unquote a lot more, or at least more for sure. I'm not going to buy 2,000 shares, but I'm going to buy as much as I can. So we'll see. I'll let you guys know next week how much I bought. I have 1,359 shares of YMAX, and I have my 500 shares of ULTY that are just chilling and collecting their premium week after week. So I'm using an FX rate from USD to CAD of 1.38. In USD, before any tax, any conversions, I'll be getting $149 from YMAX, and I'm going to get my $50 from my 500 shares of ULTY for a total of $200 US. And then in Canadian, I'm going to get $175. And for ULTY, I'll be getting $59. So this is after converting to CAD and removing the withholding tax of 15%. So in total, I'll be receiving around $235 Canadian in my brokerage account. Since I'm going to do a lump sum investment this Friday, I'm going to add this $235 to my investment. So this is just going to help me buy a bit more shares of YMAX. This is how I like investing, and week after week, I let my cash stack up in my brokerage. When it becomes that period of the month or that day of the month where I decide to do my big chunk of investing, I take all of that cash that's sitting in my brokerage, plus all of the money that I'm adding to my portfolio from my own income. I like to keep it boring. The less decisions I have to take, the better it is for me, and that's what's worked for me. I like doing bigger investments, so I like investing once or twice a month max, so I don't have to look at the market too often. I'm not really trying to buy when the market is down or where the market is up. So that was it, guys, for today's distribution. And like always, feel free to leave in the comments how much you guys are going to receive. Every week I have some people with some crazy holdings that share some crazy payouts, and it's so motivating to see. And I don't know, some of you guys following me, I think, are probably retired or are making so much money. You guys are making more money than I can even make with all my distributions and all my income sources, just from your distributions that you guys are sharing from the comments. So pretty cool to see that there's some people with some huge portfolios that are following me, and that we're building a community of income investor. Everyone's successful, everyone's getting rich, everyone's getting wealthy. So that was it, guys. Feel free to leave a like. If you're new to the channel, subscribe if you want to support me. And until next time, take care, guys.